So this week I'm doing something a little bit different. Instead of discussing a quote, we're going to be discussing a video that I actually ran across on Instagram the other day. I'm going to watch it with you right now, and then we're just going to talk about it. But before we do, if you like this kind of video, make sure you hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and make sure you ring that notification bell so that you never miss an episode or tutorial. So this video we're going to watch is a little excerpt from the Think Media podcast, but the person who's talking is actually Rory Vaden. He's an entrepreneur and author, and I'm sure many other things. I don't really know a whole lot about him because this was my first experience hearing any of his content. So let's check out that video.
Make a living from the problem you solve, but you make a life from the passion that you chase. If you just make money, eventually you're burnt out. That's a great place to start because you got to pay the bills. You need money to be able to do stuff. But ultimately, you got to chase the passion. And it's not just like, oh, this fires me up, but also what pisses you off? What breaks your heart? You look at it in the world and you go, I'm not okay with that. I'm not comfortable with that. I won't accept that. We believe that is God's divine design of your humanity. Breaks your heart for a reason because you were created to do something about that problem. And your real magic will come from living in the passion, but you have to earn your right to get there first.
Yeah, okay. So I kind of love so much about that. In fact, I'm not sure he said anything that I don't agree with. I mean, we've talked before about our why and Simon Sinek talking about what why actually is, that it's not necessarily what you're hoping to get out of having a business, but what problem you're trying to solve, basically what's your passion, what's your belief system. And I mean, that's obviously what Rory's talking about here, right? He's talking about, yes, you need to be able to make money. And that comes down to what is your business model? What is your strategy for selling your solution? But I think so many of the entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, especially that I work with and that I'm friends with, what they struggle with the most is just figuring out what their business is. Now, I'm not talking about like, what do you do? I mean, most people are going to already kind of have some feeling as to whether or not they're going to lean towards teaching or training or coaching like I do, or making something physical to sell, or providing some other type of service. Most of the time, we already kind of lean in one direction or another. But just knowing what kind of business we want to have doesn't necessarily tell us what business we're supposed to have. Most of us know that bringing in our passions and our values and our beliefs is going to certainly help us make a business that we're much more excited about. And I think what he said towards the very end there that I think could be so helpful for so many solopreneurs. Because when you're a solopreneur, you don't have people to bounce ideas off of and give you ideas back. I mean, you may, if you have built a community for yourself of other entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, if you've joined a mastermind or group coaching or something like that, which if you haven't, let's talk because I have a couple of options for you. But I think even in that situation, it's challenging because you can get feedback from somebody when you give them ideas of, things that you've been thinking about doing or a specific niche that you want to be in. But it's not the same thing as having a shared vision with someone. And I think as a solopreneur, it can be really difficult to know what direction to go in. What Rory said that I think can be so impactful here is what problem breaks your heart? And that may feel like it's not applicable in all situations. And I will be honest, you're probably going to have to be a little bit more creative with your thoughts to apply that concept in certain types of businesses. But for me, it's obvious because what breaks my heart is watching people who have a passion and have something that they really want to bring to the world, but they shy away from it or just don't do it at all because they are afraid of the technology and the tools that are needed to make it a reality. What breaks my heart even more is watching those same people hiring somebody to do this work for them so that they don't have to learn it and then being taken advantage of. I mean, that goes beyond breaking my heart. That pisses me off. I've talked about that on other podcasts and in other situations, but that's what breaks my heart. And so that's why the Tech Savvy Academy. Honestly, I could coach on other things. My first business was singing, vocal coaching, because that's something that I know really well. I've studied and I've done my whole life. And in a way, it also kind of broke my heart because I would see a lot of singers who so desperately had something to say and wanted to put it out there, but were either too shy or just not quite getting the platform for themselves because they were going into auditions from a place of scarcity and fear. And so, what I focused my voice coaching business on was auditioning with confidence, helping those singers find their voice and find their confidence. And that's how I niched down in that situation. Same thing with the Tech Savvy Academy. There's a million different business things that I could teach. And I do talk about different areas of business, but my specific focus is on those tools. It's on that technology because that's what breaks my heart. It may not be as obvious if your business is, for example, making home decor, or if your business is something like screen printing or making spa products, lotions and oils and stuff like that. Although oils might be a little bit easier because a lot of times I think that people go into essential oils and spa products and stuff like that because it breaks their heart seeing people spend so much money on a whole bunch of products that are not going to work for them, that cost more than they should, and that are filled with chemicals and bad things. And so that breaks their heart, and therefore they go into oils and, more holistic spa stuff, things like that. So that one might be a little bit closer to mine in that it's more obvious what breaks their heart in that situation. But when it comes to physical products, it may seem overdramatic to say that it breaks your heart if you see a certain group of people feeling underrepresented. And I have a friend who has a local business here. She creates all kinds of awesome products, but one of the things that she's been focusing on lately is screen printing for shirts and things like that. And she's struggling to figure out like what is her specific niche. And I get it because you can screen print anything, right? If you can create a design, you can put it on a shirt. So, how does someone like that figure out what their niche should be? How do they figure out what specific industry to target? And I think the question I would ask there would maybe be a slightly different version of what breaks your heart. Because maybe it doesn't break your heart to see that a specific community, let's just say singers, are underrepresented in humorous t-shirts and things like that, which we are, by the way. And so if you're a screen printer and music is something that you love, like think about doing some funny things for musicians, but specifically for singers, because I feel like other musicians, they get their stuff. We're the ones who are underrepresented, but I digress. I think less than it being about what breaks your heart, it's more about where does your heart lie? What are your specific values? What do you feel called to? And, I haven't talked about this really much at all on this particular podcast, but I have on my Success Through Community podcast, where I've talked about how my faith has a lot to do with my approach to my business. Maybe not necessarily the specific products and courses that I offer, but just the way that I do business. And I think Rory kind of hit the nail on the head there, where he believes, and I believe, that you are called to something specific, that it is your divine calling to serve a specific community. And so maybe that's what you need to think about is where do you feel your heart? And if you share my faith, where do you feel God calling you to serve? Maybe you should be working specifically with churches or nonprofits, which I know my friend has been doing. But there's probably a specific community, and it's okay if it's like really, really niche down. I think we get really afraid of honing in so small. But let me tell you, the smaller that you hone in your niche, the better. Because then as you're speaking in whatever content you create, whether it's your actual products or social media posts or emails or whatever, the more you know specifically and exactly who you're talking to, the more you start to create those genuine connections. And then word of mouth starts to spread. And then most likely at some point, you'll find some peripheral niches that you can also start to serve with your business. But I think just being laser focused on that one specific thing, regardless of what your business is, whether it's what breaks your heart, like it is for me, or where your heart truly lies. I think that's one of the best things you can do to figure out where your focus should be and keep you from trying to serve everyone and be everything to everyone, because we definitely talked about that. That doesn't work. So, figuring that out, where does your heart lie, or what problem, what issue breaks your heart? So, that brings me to this week's question. Maybe you've already figured this out for yourself, or maybe you need to give it some thought right now and figure it out. But either way, when you know what your answer is, drop it in the comments.